And here's Papa, Harold Santa Claus. He looks very sad, and he is very sad. And you'll find out why. Papa snapped out of his reverie when he heard Holly begin to whistle a Christmas song to Rudy. Of course, it was the one she thought was Rudy's favorite. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Papa had never regretted for one instant their decision to make Holly his daughter and only child. But he knew that the day would come when a decision would be made, and the decision was not his alone to make. Hey, little star, Rudy's looking mighty good. You sure he's not your favorite? Are you going to make the others look this good for the Christmas season? Oh, Papa, you know I will, Holly laughed. Just as quickly as she had smiled, Papa stopped smiling. Holly was as connected to her father as if his blood truly ran through her veins. As he approached her, she felt a sadness in him that she had only occasionally felt before. She would always brush it off, but something was different this time. He didn't even try to say something silly to wave it off as he usually did. For a moment, she thought he was ill, or that Mama was, and it scared her. Oh, Papa, are you ill? Little Star asked. Is Mama sick? No, Little Star, I'm fine, and so is Mama. It's you I'm worried about, he said. Why, Papa? She asked. It's almost Christmas. Everyone will be arriving soon, and I will have my official assignment. This is a wonderful time for me, and I love seeing my cousins. We have so much fun. Papa's mood did not change. And softly he said, Listen, child. And he directed her to sit on a bale of straw beside him. You know Mama and I love you and feel blessed to have you in our lives, and have always honored your birth parents and your cultural heritage. You also know that my brothers, nephews, and many cousins and distant cousins love you. But, little star, you are the first girl in the Santa Claus family. No Santa has ever produced a girl, and my brothers have decided that only the first naturally born son of the North Pole Santa should receive this birthright. Now she understood. For the first time in her entire life, Holly was shaken. Her rosy cheeks paled. Her smile disappeared. Rudolph felt the change and bellowed out the pain that Holly felt. She walked over and placed her arm around his neck, as though it were Rudolph that needed comforting. So this was the sadness that Papa never spoke of, she thought. That Holly would never be accepted as North Pole Santa by her own family. Papa took a deep breath and continued talking, for fear that he wouldn't be able to get it out at all if it didn't tumble out all at once. You, little star, he said, don't qualify under those rules. Therefore, they have decided by majority rule that the birthright should be passed to the first naturally born son of the next in line, my brother Noel's first son, Nikolai. Holly called him Nicky. Closing his eyes slowly in an effort to keep composed, Papa opened them again to complete the blow. He was struggling to keep the tears from tumbling, his voice from breaking. To make matters worse, little star, they have voted not to allow you rights to run a Christmas sleigh. As he finished those last words, the twinkle left little star's eyes. Papa could almost see them flickering out. He didn't know where it went. He just knew that it was gone. All the love he and Mama had for her couldn't fix this. What Harold Santa Claus, the 20th North Pole Santa, wasn't aware of was that his own twinkle was gone. Again, it was as if his blood coursed through Holly's veins as sure as if she were his own natural child. And when her twinkle left, his glow turned off. like a switch that had flicked or a fuse that had blown. Holly's birthright had been taken again. She'd been robbed of her first birthright when her parents died. Now she was being robbed because she was a girl, and because she was Athabascan, not naturally born to the North Pole Santa and his wife. Papa was sick. He knew there was little he could do. While his vote weighed heavier than that of his brothers individually, he could not oppose them all. And he knew that his brother Noah was dead set against Holly inheriting not only the North Pole Santa position, but of becoming an official Santa at all. Holly, Papa said, you know the traditions as well as I do. It is tradition that all firsts are family decisions. Just as it had been a family decision, for instance, that only one Santa remained in the Arctic region as North Pole Santa for each generation. Papa was rambling, looking for something that would make the hurt go away for both him and Holly. Originally, remember, there was only one Santa Claus in the entire world. The very first North Pole Santa and his wife had 6 boys. And as they came of age, they delivered gifts to children in a growing world population. Holly knew the story, but she never minded hearing it again, knowing that one day she would become not only a Santa, but a North Pole Santa. Right now, though, hearing the story was different. She knew Papa needed to talk, so she listened. Papa went on. At a time when the boys became men, which is at the initiation, you know, the family decided that each son should live on a different continent, with the oldest son remaining at the North Pole. The sons each took a wife from the country where they made their home. And the Santa Claus family increased right along with the size of the believing world. Holly heard the pride in Papa's voice as he said, that's why today there are Santas of every race and ethnic background all around the world. A few minutes passed before Papa spoke again. Holly could see his shoulders rise and fall in a silent sigh. But shortly, he picked up where he left off. It was also a family decision, Holly, that at the passing of each North Pole Santa, his oldest son would inherit the North Pole Santa position, so that he would be the second generation North Pole Santa, then the third North Pole Santa, and so on. Of course, he added, as you know, Santas live an extraordinarily long life, but they do eventually grow old and pass on, just as magic reindeer do. The magic reindeer, of course, live even longer than Santas, but not forever either. Papa turned to see Holly's reaction. She always loved Papa's stories, but she was quiet today, though still listening intently. Understanding her mood, Papa brought the story to an end. These were all family decisions, Holly. But, Papa thought, those decisions were not hurtful, and were unanimous decisions reached by all the brothers. This was different. It seemed to him that as his family spread out across the world, they had become hardened and distant in spirit. They had lost the spirit of North Pole Santa and Christmas. Holly was the 20th North Pole Santa's child. Being an adopted girl didn't change that. In fact, Papa thought it only added to the spirit of Christmas season. It was a sad, sad day for Papa, Mama, Holly, and the world. It was Holly that brought Papa back to the moment at hand. She knew he felt very badly, just as she did, and just as she was sure Mama did. But Holly told her Papa, I'm all right, Papa. I'm strong. I have you and Mama and a strong and proud Athabascan heritage as well. Holly held her father's hands and comforted him. Let's go in, she said. I'm sure Mama's fixing something wonderful for our guests, and I want to be the first to taste it. The words were right, but they rang hollow to Papa. Nonetheless, he followed his daughter in, leaving Rudy and the other magic reindeer to the dinner. Rudy's eyes glistened, and a small tear fell at the corner of his eye. Once more he let out a groan, and Holly reached out and gently lifted his chin, giving her friend a small sign of her deep affection to comfort him. And that's the end of that chapter. And we are on to chapter 4, the weather. And here's another little star. My goodness, my book doesn't want to stay together. Excuse me. The weather was getting worse. Just like that fateful day so many years ago when Holly lost her parents, the snow just didn't stop. Very unusual for an area that was usually cold but dry. And the wind was ferocious. The weather was getting bad enough. In fact, the Fairbanks Airport, the airport closest to North Pole, was considering shutting down. And though many Santas and their families had already arrived and had checked into rooms in North Pole, many others had not. Still, Holly wasn't worried. Christmas Eve was a day away, and this time of year was always full of celebration and storytelling for the family, locals, and many visiting believers. These days just before Christmas were always the best for Holly. Along with all the stories that she'd heard over and over again, but never enough, she loved playing with her cousins, all boys, but nonetheless her family. They didn't care that she was a girl, and not one said or even thought that being adopted made Holly any less a cousin than they were to each other. Because past generations had gone off to live in the many believing countries on the various continents, each of her cousins had a dramatically different appearance. Some were Asian, some African, some European. Some were chubby and some slim. Some had dark complexions with dark hair, while others had fair complexions and fair hair. Others still had fair complexions with dark hair. Some had curly hair, others straight. Some were tall, while others were short. Some had green eyes or blue eyes, while others had brown eyes, or any combination of these. Each of her cousins had a unique personality and represented the customs and costume of their background. But through it ran a common thread. They were family. And Holly alone was not born to the family, but chosen to be a part of it. Now is not time to think about this, Holly said silently. Today I'm going to have fun. And for the moment, she forgot about her own situation and became lost in the commotion of the holiday. Here's another family friend. This is Andy. You can't see him, but you could hear his little feet.